On air on the Freedom TV channel, news of free nations. Next, about the main events of the outgoing week in the life of the indigenous population, the so-called Russian Federation. The head of the cabinet of ministers of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия, Ahmed Zakhaev, arrived on a visit to Ukraine. In Bashkort, they told about new volunteers from among the indigenous people. Protests and rallies took place in the national republics and regions. We will tell you about the most notable ones. Forest fires are flaring up in Tve. And in European capitals, a presentation of the book about the decolonization of the Russian Federation, Free Nations, New States, took place. We discuss these and other topics with experts and representatives of indigenous peoples in our new issue. The head of the cabinet of ministers of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия, Ahmed Zakhaev, arrived on a visit to Ukraine. As reported by the press service of the leader of the Chechen National Liberation Movement, Ahmed Zakhaev held a number of meetings with Ukrainian politicians and the military to coordinate common actions in the fight against Moscow. During the visit, Ahmed Zakhaev visited the city of Kremenchuk, where he took part in the opening of a memorial plaque to the first president of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия, Zakar Dudayev. This act became a symbol of brotherhood and mutual respect between the Ukrainian and Chechen peoples, united in the fight against a common enemy, the government of the Chechen Republic of Ичкерия stated. On behalf of the entire Chechen people, I want to assure you that we support you and will support you until the end, because our future and our freedom and independence directly depend on the outcome of the war here in Ukraine. This is the understanding that we have, our fighters have. Therefore, at the expense of their lives, they are today on the front lines and defend the right of the Ukrainian people to life, to the future. In the same way, I emphasize, this is also true for the Chechen people. This is our future and this is ours and this will be and the victory will be ours. I am absolutely sure of this. The initiative to perpetuate the memory of Zakar Dudayev was put forward by local residents of Kremenchuk. They approached Ahmed Zakhaev with a proposal to install a memorial plaque on the facade of the house in the alley that bears the name of the legendary general. I express my deep gratitude once again to the Ukrainian people, and I express my gratitude today to the leadership of the city of Kremenchuk, who organized this event today and drew attention to the events that are happening in the world. Thank you very much. Glory to Ukraine, freedom to the Caucasus and freedom to the Chechen Republic. Representatives of the peoples enslaved by Moscow continue to fight for their freedom. Last week, the Boskor Company, which consists of natives of Bashkortistan, told about the replenishment in the ranks. The recruits themselves shared why they decided to take up arms. I remember what was happening in BAYMAK. I saw how they beat men and women there. Therefore, in this regard, I can understand the Ukrainians. This is a topic close to me. Many of my friends received a sentence. They are young people who came out to express their opinion. It is unclear why they were sentenced. According to the official channel of the Boskor Company, the fighters are currently undergoing training and preparation. Then they will be able to take part in combat missions. The volunteers are sure that among the Bashkirs in the so-called SVO zone, there are many who would like to go over to their side and fight for the freedom of their republic, and not for the imperial ambitions of the Kremlin prisoner. My name is Amir, I am 23. I came here relatively recently through Latvia. Now I am undergoing training at the center. My friend was taken away for debts right from home. And he went straight to hell in Donbass. He tried with all his might to convince me not to go there. He said it would be better to go there to the guys than to go to the Russians. They all want to go there too. They don't know how to escape and get into the company. The Boskor Company is known in the Republic itself, and among the Bashkirs there are many who support its activities. Photos with graffiti from different Bashkir cities and villages with the symbols of the Boskor Company regularly appear on the internet. I saw how the Bashkirs fought and what they are ready to do for freedom. Just like now, the guys from the company and Boskor, how they desperately fight and choose their freedom. I dream of coming to Bashkiria, to feel that I am at home, and not in Russia. In addition to the Boskor Company, representatives of other indigenous peoples are fighting in the International Legion of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Among them are Chechens, Dagestanis, Finno-Ugric ethnic groups, Sakha, Siberians, Tatars. Their goal is not only to support Ukraine in confronting the aggressor, but also to achieve the liberation of their peoples from Moscow occupation. Last week, protest rallies were held in the national republics and regions of the so-called Federation. We will tell you about the most notable of them. Novosibirsk residents went out to picket against the pension reform introduced by Putin. The rally demanding the return of the previous retirement age, 60 years for men and 55 for women, took place on July 22. The protesters said that the authorities had not fulfilled their promises, pensions had not increased, and rising prices for food, medicine and utilities had eaten up the so-called indexation. Oksana Koryakina, head of the regional branch of the All-Russian Women's Union Nadezhda Rossi, called the reform a cannibal and recalled that the government had promised an increase in the income of the older generation, but this never happened. It should be noted that the Kremlin dictator has repeatedly promised not to raise the retirement age. However, in 2019, he signed a corresponding decree. Currently, the retirement age in the Russian Federation is 65 for men and 60 for women. Meanwhile, Sakha oppositionist Alexander Ivanov arrived in the Altai Republic to support the fight for identity and the right of the people to live on their land according to their own laws. He spoke at the meeting against the implementation of municipal reform, which will negatively affect local self-government and concentrate all power in the hands of appointees from Moscow. What is happening in the Russian Federation in recent years is very depressing not only to me, but to everyone. And this is not the path to prosperity, this is not the path to creation. The latest laws that are being adopted in our federal center, they are not aimed at improving our situation, our life. They are purposefully going to the field of collapse, the field of destruction of what we have. The oppositionist noted that it is vitally important for indigenous peoples today to fight for their rights and defend their demands at rallies and pickets. Let me remind you that recently in the Altai Republic there were numerous protests against municipal reform. What you started, what you did, this is a great beginning. This is only the beginning. You can't even imagine how people react when 80,000 Altai wakes up. Well, the Altai people woke up. What would it cost the 4 million Tatars to wake up? What would it cost the 50 Sakha to wake up? When you want to enslave people, you have to make them forget their history, what they did. We need to unite now, to protest our history, our culture. In Siberia, protests forced government officials to remove the law on logging on Lake Baikal from consideration at a State Duma session. On July 21st, the People of Baikal publication reported that the reason was data from local activists on illegal logging and construction. Deputies promised to conduct an investigation. The law permitting logging and construction in the coastal zone of Lake Baikal was introduced to the State Duma back in 2022 and adopted in the first reading. However, after that, more than 100,000 Siberians signed a petition against the law. According to activists, if it is adopted, the ecology of Lake Baikal may be seriously damaged. Forest fires are flaring up in Tve. A state of emergency has been declared in the Republic. At least 8 fires have been recorded since the beginning of the week. The authorities say that they have concentrated all their efforts on extinguishing the fire and are forced to seek help from federal agencies. On July 22, 10 forest fires were already recorded in the region on a total area of about 300 hectares. The largest fire to date is in the Shaganer forestry. There, 36 hectares of territory are engulfed in flames, including 12 hectares of forest. From July 22 to 27, the presentation of the book Free Nations, New States, edited by the famous American analyst Janusz Bugajski, was held in European capitals. Details were given by a participant in the event, one of the leaders of the Yakut national movement, Raisa Zubarova. This is a book that contains, reports, let's say, of the leaders of national movements, who have gone through almost all of them from the very beginning until the spring of this year, of the forums of the Post of the Peoples of Russia. This is a continuation of the book by Janusz Bagaisky, in which he says that, well, the collapse of the empire is inevitable. This is a historical process. This is the man who was the first to predict the collapse of the Soviet Union. A man who sees history quite clearly, knows history and sees our future quite clearly, the future of the Russian Federation, the future of the peoples that are part of it now. So far, during the week, presentations have been held in Warsaw, Berlin, Turek, Prague, Vienna, Bratislava and Turin. Representatives of various indigenous peoples under Moscow's occupation took part in the events. And the presentation itself turned into a discussion platform for them in Western society. I was there from the Sakha Republic, Anna Pryakina was there from the Siberian region, Nafis Kashapov, Vice Premier, of the government in exile, was there from the Republic of Tatarstan, and there was also a representative of Buryatia, the Republic of Buryatia and, Dagestan. And Ичкерия. It was a very lively discussion. We talked about, how our movements work, what kind of ones we have, what difficulties we face, what needs to be done so that the West can hear us. The presentation of Janusz Bagaisky's book became not only a cultural event, but also an important political declaration. The prospects for the formation of new states in the post-Russian space were discussed, the restoration of historical justice and the paths of a peaceful transition to a post-imperial future. In fact, it was a huge event, and it was cool. And so, when they ask what you need to do, yes, so that, the conditional West would pay attention to you and start helping you, would understand you in general, yes, and there was such an answer, that just such books and in general everything that is told about us both in our words and in the words of political scientists, this can also help officials, Western politicians to learn about us. I am truly grateful to Janusz, Mr. Janusz, for having done such a great job, for doing everything for us. These were the main news from the life of the indigenous peoples of the so-called Russian Federation. The next issue is exactly 1 week away on the Freedom TV channel.